Let's jump right in. Today's explainer takes us through the deeply fascinating, highly cinematic, and honestly, incredibly tragic story of Ivan the Terrible. We're going to look at how one man's grand vision for a massive empire completely spiraled into unspeakable darkness. Because it really begs this ultimate historical paradox, right? How does the architect of a heavily centralized Russian state, a guy who massively expanded his borders, end up directly dooming his own bloodline and plunging his entire country into absolute chaos? Well, today, we're going to see exactly how autocracy, paranoia, and absolute power all collided to create one of history's most terrifying reigns. Section 1. The First God-Crowned Tsar. Let's rewind to the year 1547. Picture this, we're inside the candlelit Cathedral of the Dormitian in Moscow. A bold 16-year-old Ivan demands a coronation unlike anything any Russian ruler had ever seen. See, before Ivan, Russian rulers just called themselves Grand Princes, but Ivan, he insisted on being crowned Tsar, and that word is actually directly derived from the Roman Caesar. By doing this, Ivan wasn't just giving himself a promotion, he was elevating his status to be the absolute equal of the Holy Roman Emperor over in the West. He was declaring to the world that his authority was absolute. Anointed with oil and wearing the legendary jewel-encrusted cap of Monomach, Ivan basically reinvented Byzantine traditions on the spot. I mean, this wasn't just a fancy hat, it was a brilliantly crafted piece of propaganda. The church, and Ivan himself, used it to claim this mythical, unbroken lineage tracing all the way back to the Roman Emperor Augustus. He was literally tying his right to rule directly to antiquity.
And this coronation officially cemented what's known as the Third Rome doctrine. The whole idea was that the First Rome fell, the Second Rome, Byzantium, fell to the Turks, which meant Moscow was the third and final sanctuary of the true Christian faith. The old text warned, there shall not be a fourth. So here's the absolutely crucial point to take away. If the Tsar embodies God on earth as the protector of this final Rome, then opposing him isn't just a political crime. It is quite literally heresy against God.
Moving on to Section 2, Slaves to the State. So, while Ivan is claiming this grand divine mandate from the heavens, down on the ground, he was engineering a ruthless political system of absolute subservience. And he borrowed a lot of this from the legacy of previous Mongol rule. Think about Western Europe at the time. Feudalism meant nobles had private property rights, right? This let them build independent wealth and act as a political counterbalance to the king. But in Russia, under what's called the polmesty system, landowners held their estates strictly on the condition of military service to the state. Even the highest-ranking boyars legally had to refer to themselves as the Tsar's slaves. Zero private property protections. By 1556, Ivan locked this whole system into law with a massive decree. Basically, for roughly every 55 hectares of land a noble held, they had to provide the state with a fully equipped soldier and horse. If you displeased the Tsar even a little bit, boom, your land was instantly gone. You didn't actually own it. You were just borrowing it in exchange for being a cog in Ivan's giant war machine.
The big takeaway here is that because land was constantly being revoked and shuffled around based on military service, these Russian nobles never actually put down local roots. So you know those civic networks, the charities, local community bodies that eventually paved the way for independent civil societies and democracy in the West? They simply never had the chance to evolve in Russia. Autocracy thrived because society itself was deliberately kept weak and transient.
Section 3. Forging an Empire. With literally all of society dependent on him, Ivan built up a massively centralized military. But to pay this rapidly growing class of military servitors, Ivan needed land. A lot of it. 130. That is the number of square kilometers the Russian Empire expanded by every single day, on average, between the year 1500 and the 1917 revolution. Just take a second to think about the sheer, mind-boggling scale of that growth. To keep that pomaced system we just talked about functioning, the state had to constantly, relentlessly consume new territories. Ivan aggressively pushed his empire east. He used brand new gunpowder tactics, fixed artillery and musketeers to utterly obliterate the rival khanates of Kazan and Astrakhan. And this massive triumph was immortalized by the construction of something I guarantee you'll recognize, St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow. With all its dazzling colors and those outrageous onion domes, it was designed as this joyful, triumphant proclamation of victory over the Tartars, built to look like the heavenly Jerusalem.
But there's a really crucial geopolitical lesson that emerges here. See, Eastward expansion into Asia and Siberia was wildly successful, mostly driven by these rugged Cossack mercenaries. But when Ivan tried to push west into Europe to secure ports on the Baltic Sea, it was an absolute disaster. His armies just got entirely bogged down in the grueling Livonian War, ultimately thwarted by stronger Western neighbors like Poland, Lithuania, and Sweden. And this exhausting two-front war started to economically devastate the Russian state.
Section 4. Paranoia and the Oprichnina.
Now, this is exactly where the story takes a really dark turn. The immense stress of this failing war in the West, combined with a string of devastating personal tragedies, completely shattered Ivan's psyche. Over just 5 short years, he suffers this brutal cascading sequence of tragedy. In 1560, he loses his beloved wife Anastasia, who, by all accounts, was the only calming influence on his completely volatile temper. 3 years later, his trusted spiritual guide dies. The very next year, his top military commander defects to the enemy in Poland. So by 1565, Ivan is entirely convinced that he is surrounded by an invisible web of treason.
His solution to all this paranoia? The Oprichnina. This was essentially a hellish state within a state. He carved out a separate, massive domain and gave it to a private army of 5,000 fanatically loyal men. These enforcers rode around the countryside on black horses, wearing these terrifying black monk cloaks. And to make it even more intimidating, they carried physical symbols of a severed dog's head and a broom attached right to their saddles. It symbolized their mission, to literally sniff out treason like a dog and sweep it from the land.
This absolute paranoia ultimately culminated in horrific public spectacles, most notably the Paganaya Meadow Massacre of 1570. In an hours-long bloodbath, supervised directly by Ivan himself, hundreds of noblemen were brutally tortured, flayed, boiled alive in water, and hacked to pieces right in the center of Moscow. The level of terror was absolute.
But why do it like this? What makes this so deeply chilling is that Ivan didn't just see this as ruthless political survival. He was actually relying on scriptures, heavily citing passages like Romans 13. Ivan genuinely viewed his reign of terror as a holy, righteous crusade. He believed the apocalypse was imminent, and as God's anointed czar, it was his divine duty to purge the Russian land of sinners before the final judgment.
He even went so far as to meticulously design his brutal execution methods to mimic the fires of hell. Victims were often killed suddenly, like by a swift beheading, specifically to deny them their last rites, which he believed would ensure their souls were damned for all eternity. He truly saw himself as this sword-bearing archangel doing God's wrathful work on earth.
Section 5. The End of a Dynasty.
Eventually, the Oprichnina was actually abolished, but Ivan's unpredictable, violent rage, that remained deeply ingrained in his character. In 1581, in a sudden, explosive fit of rage, reportedly over how his pregnant daughter-in-law was dressed, Ivan struck out wildly with his heavy iron-tipped staff. He accidentally landed a fatal blow squarely on the head of his 27-year-old son, the Tsarevich Ivan. The historical accounts say the look of sheer horror and remorse on Ivan's face captured the exact moment he realized what he had just done.
By murdering his own son, Ivan the Terrible completely annihilated the future of his own dynasty. His only capable heir was dead. The next in line was mentally unfit to rule, and his youngest son was just an infant when Ivan finally died in 1584. Because all power was so tightly centralized in the Tsar, the massive vacuum left by this tragedy directly plunged Russia into a brutal 30-year civil war known as the Time of Troubles.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer. Ivan the Terrible successfully forged the beginnings of the world's largest empire. But by deliberately ensuring that all of society remained weak, landless, and nothing more than a slave to the state, did he permanently doom Russia to centuries of autocratic tragedy? When a system relies entirely on the sanity of one mortal man, the whole nation pays the price when that mind breaks. Thanks for exploring this with me today, and I'll catch you in the next one.